All right, guys. This is day 4 of our benchmark unit, Unit 1, Government for the People.
We've learned so much about the government already. Let's revisit our essential question on the board. Think about how your answer from earlier in the week may have changed based on everything you've learned.
Okay. So we're going to be doing a Venn diagram. Okay. It's basically a graph that tells that we compare two things when they're the same, or when there are two things that are different. Okay. So when we're comparing Rosa Parks and Thurgood Marshall, okay, there's some things that are similar to both of them, and there's some things that are different from both of them. Okay. So it says what is similar and what was different about these two people. Okay. Let's go ahead and read those pages again. All right. Let's read those 2 pages again in your booklet.
Short Read 2. Remember to annotate as you read.
Election Day by Nell Wilson. On Election Day, United States citizens age 18 and older can vote. They vote in special places called polls. They vote for candidates, the people running for office. It might be the president of the country. It might be the mayor of a city. Voters receive a ballot. The ballot lists the names of the candidates. Each voter chooses one candidate for each office, then casts his or her vote. How do people know who to vote for? Candidates campaign to win votes. Candidates try to convince voters why they are the best person for the job. They give speeches and run ads. They meet with voters to explain how they will help the country or their community. Meanwhile, campaign workers put up posters. They make phone calls to ask citizens to vote for their candidate.
Voting is a way for people to be heard. Their vote is their voice. It tells leaders what voters think is important.
Fighting to vote. Voting is a right that people have had to fight for in U.S. history. Only men aged 21 or older who owned land could vote in the first presidential election, 1788. In most states, only white people could vote. After the Civil War, all African Americans were free, but most still could not vote. Lawmakers worked to make sure they got that right. In 1870, the 15th Amendment to the Constitution was passed. It gave African American men the right to vote. Yet some states passed laws to stop African Americans from voting. People fought these laws. In 1944, Thurgood Marshall won a case in the Supreme Court. African Americans could now vote in some elections in places that had stopped them. This victory led to measures that helped protect people's voting rights.
Thurgood Marshall was the first African American Supreme Court Justice.
Rosa Parks. It is my right to sit anywhere. After the Civil War, Jim Crow laws kept African Americans from exercising all their rights. Public places were often segregated. For example, at the movies, whites could sit downstairs. African Americans had to sit in the balcony. African Americans could not swim in the same pools or go to the same schools as whites. In many places, African Americans were also kept from voting. Rosa Parks, an African American, tried to register to vote in Alabama twice. She had the right to vote, but was turned down both times. Together with many others, Rosa Parks worked to change Jim Crow and other unfair laws. On December 1, 1955, Rosa Parks boarded a city bus in Montgomery, Alabama. She was going home from work. The first 10 seats of the bus were for white passengers only. Rosa Parks sat behind those seats, in a seat for African Americans. Soon the bus was full. A white man got on. The bus driver told Rosa Parks to give her seat to the man. She politely refused to move, so the bus driver called the police. Rosa Parks was arrested because she didn't do what the driver told her to do.
Then it says, the police drove her to the police station. Parks didn't know what might happen to her. She was released from jail several hours later. In her autobiography, Parks wrote, I had no idea when I refused to give up my seat on that Montgomery bus that my small action would help put an end to the segregation laws in the South. I only knew that I was tired of being pushed around. I was a regular person, just as good as anybody else. So this is page 13 in your red packet. Okay. Okay, this is called a Venn diagram, where we write things that are similar about both people and things that are different about both of them. Okay, so for example, what's one thing that Rosa Parks do? Do you remember?
She didn't do what the bus driver told her.
Yeah, and that was what?
Disobeying the law.
Yeah. What did he wanted her to do?
For the other guy that got on.
Yeah, so he wanted her to give up her seat, right? And she didn't do that. So wouldn't give up her seat on a bus. What was the result of that? What happened to her because she didn't do that? Allison? She got arrested. But because of that, I just want to write this out for you. Because of that, she helped end the Jim Crow laws. Those laws were unfair. That means they actually had separate bathrooms. Okay. For Thurgood Marshall, he won something. What did he win? A case, yeah. He won a case. Won a case in the Supreme Court. And then he helped end laws that kept African Americans from voting. And what do you think was the same for both of them?
They helped bend the laws.
Yes, they helped African American win rights, okay, or make the rules better. You're right. They helped African Americans with rights. Excellent.